All right, we have an exciting time coming up. Claws up. I have affixed team insignia to my microphone, which hopefully does not affect my mic quality. But we're getting into time for Blaseball. Very exciting. As the person in front of the camera, I feel like I can abuse my power and say that the Baltimore Crabs are the Blaseball team of Roguelike Celebration. My other organizers might disagree. They might say that, the Hawaii Fridays, Canada Moist Talkers, and others, Hades Tigers, but claws up. Crabs are the best. The commissioner's doing a great job, but thank you. I feel like we might go ahead and just start this a little bit early, if that's all right. I know people are hyped for Blaseball. Yeah, I'm getting a thumbs up. All right, it is my pleasure to introduce Joel Clark from the Game Band, or the Game Bland, as you will. Joel built the simulation that governs Blaseball. He's responsible for so much of the game's unique tone, and there would be no York Silk without his name generator, or Oliver Not a Robot, for that matter. And you're here to give us a perfectly ordinary, normal, mundane Blaseball experience.
Yeah, I hope to really deliver on that promise of it being mundane. So, and I really love the claws. Great claws. I wish I had like a baseball or a Blaseball or something here to really add flavor here, but I just have some water and a base and a bagel. So it's really boring, really mundane. Setting the tone. So yeah, my name is Joel. I work for a studio called the Game Band. We recently made a perfectly normal little website called www.blaseball.com. And now it's 3 months later, and I'm really just trying to figure out what's happened over the past few months. So thank you for to the wonderful organizers of this event. It's a really cool event so far. And just preparing for this talk has given me a chance to step back and actually make some sense of this wild game that we've made. So if you don't have the context for Blaseball, I'll give it very quickly. It's a weekly global simulated league of a baseball-ish sport. And every week you can vote a bunch in an election to change all sorts of things about the league, everything from players to teams to even the rules of the game. And it's weird, it's dark. I hope it's funny to people. It's sometimes terrifying when a squid or a giant peanut shows up. And there's a lively community doing all sorts of creative things around it. There's just always something going on, whether it's in the Discord or on Twitter or just something going on in the game itself. Just anytime you check in, there's something new. There are 100 more things I could tell you about Blaseball, but that's more or less the gist of it. So the single most common question that we receive about Blaseball is, why? Why did we make this thing? What prompted this? And the simplest, quickest answer I could give you is that Blaseball is a response to reaction to chaos. So when we came up with this idea, our studio was going through some odd times. We were trying to find our next step after having finished up another game. And then suddenly there was a pandemic, and we were self-isolating and suddenly a remote studio, and we were just trying to make sense of how to navigate that. And at that time, Sam, our CEO of the Game Band, pitched us a game about bringing people together amidst that chaos. And we had an hour-long scope ballooning chat, as we always do. And at the end of it, we had pretty much the full idea for Blaseball, including that wonderful name, which you can pronounce however you'd like, by the way. I accept all pronunciations. But making this game has helped me make sense of just the chaos of the world that's been happening. And it's helped our studio start to find a path forward through it. Yeah, I've just been thinking a lot about chaos and learning a lot about it, and that's what I want to share with you today. I'm probably going to say chaos enough times to where it'll start to make no sense to anybody, but we'll deal with it. So on a base level, chaos is just unpredictability, right? It's not being able to predict or parse the outcome of a set of initial conditions and behaviors. It's something that feels totally random, even if it's not. And actually, chaos theory would say that it is not random. We just can't parse it. We don't have enough information. So this is more or less the scientific view of chaos, but I'm definitely paraphrasing and butchering it. We use chaos a little bit differently in conversation. We talk about chaos as being complete disorder, like the 2020 news cycle, where just something, it's just, there's things being thrown at you all the time, or like an explosion, or you know, a storm with stuff flying around. That's what we think about when we talk about chaos, is disorder. But I've really changed my definition of it to something that happens on a more personal level. Chaos is a personal, emotional experience rather than this big phenomenon. The same system is going to feel much more chaotic to one person versus another, depending on your understanding of it, depending on your context. So I think chaos is a moment-to-moment part of people's lives, and I think it's a core part of what makes games interesting. And so I wanted to find a definition to match that. So here's what I came up with. Chaos is discomfort caused by trying to understand something. So particularly when failing or struggling to understand that thing. And then I've been using that definition to reframe my own game design as we are exposing players to chaos and then showing them the path through it over and over. I think we're thinking about that all the time, whether we phrased it that way in game design. We think about when we're talking about pacing, when we're introducing new systems, everything is going to be a little chaotic to that player until they learn about it and they understand it. So if you have a new enemy or a boss with suddenly a bunch of new weird attacks, you're not going to understand what's going on. It's going to be really unpredictable until you get hit by it once, twice, you lose a few times, and then you start to recognize the patterns, then you settle in. And once you figure it out, it's no longer chaotic. You understand it and you know how to beat it. But that process from being exposed to that new information and then figuring it out is uncomfortable, and that's chaos to me. So let's get into Blaseball, huh? There's a lot of things that make Blaseball chaotic, but I had to narrow it down to a few things for a talk. So let's talk about what makes Blaseball chaotic. The first two are pretty, I think it'll be very understandable to everybody here. The first one's very easy. It's randomness. There is a lot of talk about how Blaseball is just a random number generator with some lore on top. And I'm here to confirm that's 100% correct. Yeah, like randomness is just exciting. And Blaseball definitely embraces it. Randomness is just inherently chaotic. It's something you just can't understand by definition. That's the purpose of randomness, really. And I think it's important to note, I think it's the cheapest form of chaos you can add to your game. Just adding randomness, procedural generation, great example. If you embrace randomness, you can add chaos pretty cheaply. The next one, emergence or emergent systems design. I'm sure everyone here has some frame of what this is, with being the Roguelike Celebration. And I'm not going to dive too far into it because it's been explored for decades and it's being explored all day today and yesterday. But the idea here is that when systems interact, it drives complexity of outcome through the roof. And that's going to keep players on their toes and learning and interpreting, and therefore causing chaos. And when systems interact, it's going to cause such a level of complexity and chaos that you just really can't do just by scripting something. You're going to create things that are unexpected for even you, the developer, and that is just exciting. I'll probably mention more how just Blaseball is equally chaotic to me. Maybe not equally chaotic, but there's still so much that I'm seeing and just experiencing at the same time. Sports in particular are a perfect example of emergent systems design. they're producing these infinite outcomes based off of just simple rules, and fans tune in to revel in that chaos. That's a big part of why we leaned into baseball as a topic. Baseball is so simple, but it generates so much unexpected behavior. So that was really the starting point for us on this. We're building off of that. And then we got to start to get more specifically into Blaseball. So the third thing is improvisational design. We've promised a lot here. We've promised weekly updates. We've promised continued mystery and change and weirdness, and that forces us to think on our toes constantly. We really can't have too much of a filter in our design, or else we would run out of time and we wouldn't get any changes in. So it really forces us to change how we're approaching the design of this game. We work a lot out of the subconscious, and we have to try to stay in sync with one another so that our design meetings don't, get stuck on something. We have to keep moving, keep moving. We're really not afraid of getting ideas in that are bad or weird. The design of this game is really raw because it has to be, because we have to move fast. And you can imagine how that could create some chaos. We're playing this game too. We're watching the randomness cause events and are reacting along with you. And so when things shake out in surprising, weird ways, we have to change course and embrace it. And similarly, when the community comes up with a plot, when they take the systems that are in their hands and decide to do something really exciting and fun with it, we have to pick it up and run with it as best as we can with the time that we have. Usually we've at least partially anticipated it. Like we've thought, okay, well, if they what happens if they don't have any pitchers? We don't have to think about that. But the community deciding to rally around it is something that we can't expect. We're having a dialogue every season between developers and community, and that brings so much unpredictability to experience. It's a little stressful for us, for sure, but it is incredibly fun to build a game that way. And then the last thing I'll mention is a design rule that I've tried to enforce throughout the project, and it's going to sound a little absurd or funny, but we are okay with the game getting sloppy. And I didn't have enough time to do fun transitions on the slide, but I want you to know that there was going to be a bunch of more pictures of trash cans just appearing. So if you could picture that, it would really help, I think, everyone's experience of this. We're okay with the game getting sloppy. We're okay with that. We lean into it sometimes, and sometimes it's even a little intentional. We're not afraid to take risks, and if the design of a system falls flat, then we probably aren't going to fix it. Is that weird? At least not right now. We're instead trying to address issues by adding new systems on top of the old broken systems, or adding another link between two different systems. And those old broken systems will just continue to exist in the background and continue to influence the game and the simulation. We're essentially fixing problems by adding more problems, which is, hilarious, especially if you're a designer who tries to design very cleanly around things. I think this adds so much chaos to the experience. It's very fun. And there's a couple of reasons for it. With Blaseball especially, I think it's important that there's an influx of new things in order to keep up a sense of unpredictability, in order to allow more things for the community to interpret and try to make sense of. So we always prioritize new over better. And it's partially that we can't afford the time to overhaul a broken system. I think it's a lot harder to take a broken system and reshape it or tear it down and rebuild it than it is to just add a new simple system. But that's not the main thing. Mainly, for me personally, this game has been an experiment in replicating how broken systems get made in our world, particularly in America. There's an abundance of systems that govern this country and our society, and none of them are perfect. And in American politics, it's nearly impossible to gut and redesign a system. Instead, we just keep adding rules and clauses, and it's absolutely incomprehensible. Yeah, so when I saw Blaseball going in a chaotic direction, I made it a goal to understand the brokenness of systems better through the project, and to hopefully help other people understand that all better too. Yeah, I watched Tanya's talk a few minutes ago, and it's talking about how to change culture, and I was very interesting, and it's really cool to know that other designers are thinking about the same things and trying to understand the brokenness of systems in our world and how to change them through game design. Yeah, and then hopefully, I don't know, at some point, it'd be really cool to do another experiment where we tear it all down and replace or fix the broken systems and learn about that. So Blaseball is messy and improvisational and random, and yet there's a ton of people keeping up with it. It's really teaching me that people have a much higher threshold for confusion and learning in games than I thought. People like to make sense of things. It's rewarding to overcome chaos. So the times where Blaseball feels the most chaotic are the times where the community is struggling to interpret new information. And that's what really led me to my definition of chaos. Again, chaos is the discomfort of struggling or trying to understand something. But per that definition, when you do finally make sense of something, it's no longer chaotic. There's a path through it. You're going to figure out how to beat that enemy or that boss in that game with time and with perseverance. There's also other paths through chaos, or things that can help us through it. Narrative is a path through chaos. I know procedural narrative is a big topic right now. Narrative is our way of rising above and explaining things that don't make sense to us otherwise. I think that taking the time to understand this concept of chaos and allowing more of it into our design is going to make the stories that we tell or generate better. But the real point here, my final thought, is that in a previous statement, we've said that Blaseball is a game about building community amidst forces beyond our control, malevolent forces beyond our control. So I really think that the number one path through chaos is community. Think about how insufferable Blaseball would be if you didn't have anyone to talk about it and you were just experiencing this chaotic stuff on your own. We figure out things faster together. We wade through difficult experiences more easily together. And I really believe that community is the best path through the chaos. Yeah, so I know I kind of sped through that, and I didn't really dive into specifics about Blaseball, but I think we have a lot of time left for some Q&A. So if you want to ask me about any weird stuff going on in Blaseball, I'm perfectly happy to answer that sort of thing.
Again, though, you bring the emotions into it. Gosh, this Sunday is beautiful. It's a beautiful definition. And wow, I'm loving, I thought our through line was going to be, proc gen and to a certain degree Blaseball, but the fact that we have this through line of community and using different types of systems to look at our world and, find ways to understand it and make it better. I mean, it makes sense, 2020 mood. I mean, you look to it, this space and what our thoughts were in creating it and celebrating community, but still it's amazing to see that come together.
Yeah, it really becomes obvious how important community is when a great community forms, whether it's Blaseball's community, which is just, it warms my heart to see what's formed around Blaseball, or just this Roguelike Celebration is another great community here, and just seeing the work that you guys put into this, also very cool. It's just so important to have communities.
Yeah. All right. Well, we do have questions, of course. The first one is, hello, Joel A. Clark. I am the Cyber Commissioner Prime Minister. Can you tell us what Shakespeareanism is? We are dying from not knowing, or at least say something cryptic to put us on a new goose chase.
Shakespeareanism is exactly what it sounds like. For starters, it's Shakespeare.
Obviously. Yeah.
Let's think.
Claws.
I will say that it is linked with tragicness.
Ooh.
I believe. I sometimes when I get these questions, I have to open up the code and go like, remember, but I think it's linked to tragicness, and tragicness is obviously an elusive stat for multiple reasons in Blaseball. But I'll add that breadcrumb and just if that helps, I hope it helps.
I love it. I love it. I'm sure that there will be papers written based on analyzing every bit of that. Another great question. Was there ever a moment when you were genuinely surprised by what the fans did? I assume there's many.
Yeah, many. There's certainly been plenty of moments where I've been surprised by just multiple elements. The simulation surprises me all the time. The community, especially since we added the idols board, has really the community surprises me every season. So it'd be hard not to answer this with the Jalen Hot Dog Fingers necromancy, because we anticipated it to some extent. We knew that you could idolize a dead player, but to see just people rallying around it, and especially like the first few days of having launched that feature, they were like, well, they'll find it eventually. No, it's like the day that we launched it. That was really, we did have to scramble around and figure some stuff out, but it was incredibly fun. I loved that whole week.
Yeah, that's wonderful. I'm glad that the attitude is I loved it and not that was the worst week of my life or anything like that.
Well, it's both, but I did. It is a lot of fun.
I guess to cheat and ask a question that I'm really curious about, and I think people will find interesting. Forgive me. I think that it's very interesting with the community to watch how some people have a lot of familiarity with procedural generated kind of games and narratives and are coming from that space and are expecting that level of randomness and unpredictability. But I think you see in terms of, certain key players getting incinerated, or like the reaction to Kiki Familia appearing, having a burst of fan art and then immediately dying. And, some people are having trouble dealing with the expectation that they want there to be more of a sense of order. How do you feel about that and approach that, where I think different people come to the game with very different levels of comfort around procedural narrative?
Yeah, that's a great question. It's challenging to make a single experience that fits everyone. And I know, there's a big thing that led me to what I'm talking about here, where everyone has a different threshold for chaos. Everyone's going to have their different tolerance for what they want to experience and what they want to, some people in the community are reveling in this chaos, and some people really don't want to see their players incinerated. And we want to make this game for everybody. And we do plan. It's a big goal of mine in the future to make Blaseball more respectful of your time and respectful of the energy that you're putting into the game. And that's really, it's something that we haven't been able to really approach like immediately, as soon as the minute that these emotions are pouring out of the game. It takes us time to implement it.
Mm-hmm.
But it's a huge goal for our future. And the story we're telling right now with the discipline era and what's going on is mostly about chaos. And so it's hard to pivot off of that immediately. But I want to ensure people that we know it and we hear it, and we're really trying to make this experience respectful of everyone.
Yeah.
And it'll get there, I hope.
Yeah, it's an interesting thing because, people do love drama and the consequences of that. So that's very curious. It actually ties nicely into a question here from Spade, which is that the game ban has said before that Blaseball is a horror game. Has the exact nature of that changed at all over time? Or I would add, even, do you see that changing in the future?
It's certainly changing. I mean, I don't think it started as a horror game. It's just it started with the Forbidden Book. We threw that in there and found people so intrigued by it, and they had to open it. They wanted to open it. And it's just only progressed from there. So the horror elements have just found their way
It's
in.
our fault, is what you're saying.
It's your fault.
The necromancy is.
Yeah, I mean, we knew, I think we did kind of know that we wanted the incinerations were going to start. That was kind of the first idea that set us up, that pushed the first domino over. And yeah, so we knew kind of that it was going to go in that direction, but we're also listening to the community and seeing that they really liked the more weird or horror elements. So we've leaned into that.
Yeah.
And so it'll continue to change. If people's reactions become, well, this is too much, we'll back away from it. We're always responding to the community. We're making this game with the community. I keep saying there's 3 elements making this game. The simulator is making this game. We are making this game, and the community is making this game. And it's just a process of those 3 things coming together.
Yeah, the Fridays are pulling it away from horror on a daily basis. Another interesting question, especially makes sense, like given all the technical people who like to come to Roguelike Celebration, how do you program the games? You can add new mechanics on the fly. Like, to what degree can you speak to some of what that back end looks like? It's kind of a terrifying concept that you just layer new things on top of other things. What does that look like from a technical perspective?
Yeah, well, you design for modularity. You think about every system as its own thing. Like, can you design that system in isolation without interacting with anything else? So you think about a team roster. It's just a list of players, and that is that object and the data on it. And you're saying the system is players can leave in different ways. Players can get added to that. It's just a single simple system. And then that has its ways it can plug into things. And so then other systems can come in and say, okay, well, let me add a player. Let me incinerate a player, and I'll give you a different one to come in there. Or let's have feedback. I'll give you a different player from another team and take one from you. By designing every system in isolation, with really just like, its purpose very cleanly, its purpose. It's really easy to tie things together. And then I'd say like our modification system that we've added is like really helps with that too. We just say that players can have a modification, and it can really link any 2 systems together, or it can add new rules to an existing system, and that is like added a ton of extendability for us. Yeah,
that's awesome. No, it sounds really cool. Here's a question I really love from Tucky Alto. How many of your design decisions are driven by lighthearted spite, to be honest?
Lighthearted spite. That's a wonderful way to phrase it. Not many. Some. Not many. I was feeling very spiteful after Peanut Fraud. So that did influence a lot of what's happening just by butterfly effect. But that's when I in a huff change it to Sportsmanship is Dead.
Right.
That was a pure emotional spite coming out. But really beyond that, not a whole lot.
That makes sense.
Yeah, it's probably all butterfly affecting from just that one Peanut Fraud event.
Yeah, there is, of course, call out to the fact that the commissioner is doing a great job.
Oh, yeah.
Sure is there a plan for everything under the reduction or redactions in the book?
Yeah, we have the book.
Okay. All right. They have the book.
Amazing.
Don't worry. Here's a really good question from Dastardly. Did you have a good siesta?
I did. Yeah. I'm actually in the process of moving. I'm just at my sister's house in Denver. It's great. There's a husky here. I can play with a husky.
Everyone now is going to want to see the dog, Joel.
We can maybe, if Sierra is, I don't know where Sierra is now, but if she wanders into frame, I'll pick her up.
All right, that sounds good. Yes, and there's encouragement that I definitely want to echo of making sure to take time to yourself. Honestly, I think that, for developers to set a precedent for taking time to themselves is really important. And I am really glad to hear it was a good siesta and not like we're crunching during this week so that we can crunch some more when it's live. I think that's really fantastic.
Yeah, can I just say how amazing it is that like how much our community understands that and wishes for us to get some rest. It makes it easy to say to take a siesta and just rest up. So I really appreciate that.
Yeah, well, we hope you keep taking them. Here's a question from Procten. Did you expect people to get as attached to the individual players as they have?
No. I mean, at the time, we made this game so fast that we didn't really expect anything. That we didn't have time to like test it with people and see what they liked about it. I mean, I made this game because I like generating fake names and getting attached to those names.
It shows in how good those names are.
Yeah, but then when I see, I'm not like seeing fan art is just wild for me. So like the first time I saw a Boyfriend Monreal fan art of like 8 blinking eyes, it just wowed me. I was like, oh wow, no, people are gonna really care about these players and these teams. I gotta get used to this.
Yeah, and then you light them on fire. So
it's the simulator. It's the simulator.
Yeah, that's right. You have no responsibility.
In numbers.
Who wrote the simulator, Jill? Here's a good one that we'll see how long it takes. Might be one of the last questions. But what do you think about the voting system so far? It's interesting how it replicates already existing power imbalances, but I know that's not necessarily fun for everyone, which is from Glumbaron, which as a crab, I feel like I have to ask about too, because there's a lot of discussion about how a team like the Crabs as a voting block wields a greater amount of power and what that does.
This is a great question. I just add that after this election we got with the Crabs won like 5 blessings. They won 0 last season. So
I know.
Yeah.
I know. And listen, the Crabs were bottom of the league when I joined. And yes, we had the highest in 4 blessings and only got 1 previously. So yes.
Yeah. But the point is very, very valid. We did design the blessing system to be a raffle for chaos and randomness, and it's very exciting to see what you won. But yeah, like it is one of the perfect examples. I almost just worked it into the talk of a broken system that we are leaving in. And I mean, there's been a ton of ideas thrown out in the community that are wonderful ways to reweigh the blessings. We have thought of more ways, but we certainly haven't found the time to overhaul that system. And we'll throw in stuff like enhanced party time, where it'll balance it in a different way. So we fixed that problem by introducing a different system that kind of addresses some of the problems that are happening. Yeah, and I'll say in the future, like we'll add new election items, we'll overhaul it and rework it. But the blessings are going to be the way they work for a little while longer.
Yeah, I think that's great. Last question that I think is good. Hello, Joel A. Clark, Cyber Commissioner, Prime Minister here again. Has Parker been sleeping well this siesta?
Oh, plenteously, I think. Yeah. I don't know. I force him to call me every once in a while, just get an update, and he hasn't been calling me a lot. So I think Parker's getting some rest. All
right, we'll hope so. Yeah. Well, excellent. Thank you so much. This has been wonderful. There are a ton more questions. We will, share them with you in one form or another. And hopefully people get a chance. But lots of love for Blaseball. Thank you so much for coming. And on short notice, too, in terms of us basically finding out we had a way to talk to you and knocking on the door saying, please come talk about Blaseball.
This is super fun. So thank you for inviting me to do this. It's great.
All right. Enjoy the rest of your conference.